This is the fourth of episode of my lecture series, Collective Utopia. And before I'm going to read this quite short chapter today, I want to say that if you're here for the first time and you want to have an overview about what this is all about and what the structure of this project is and the thematic columns, you should go to the very first episode and watch the first 15 minutes where I describe and explain in depth what this is all about. So for now I'm going to jump right into the text again and continue where I stopped last week. October the 5th, 2021. New territory. Dark storm clouds push behind me over the mountain towards the open sea. In a calm, steady speed and in an inevitability, like an inevitable fate announcing itself. The black clouds are reflected in the sea, bathing it in a dark blue, dark purple, menacing, huge, gloomy mirror. The surface of the water is as smooth as glass, a strange spectacle. In the distance, pushing around the mountains, western end of the island, the rain is already lashing the surface in the water, roughening it. The darkness is broken silvery on the surface. Is the storm coming closer to me, or is it pushing out to the sea? Hardly to say. I seem to be exactly at this ale where the storm over the mountains braces itself from the south against the storm coming from the west. But suddenly I see a whirlwind forming over the sea and heading towards me. I look up and see above me, almost within reach, a huge vortex of dark clouds forming. An image like one knows from satellite images of a hurricane. It seems as if I were right in the center. Really? Am I right in the eye of the hurricane? A frightening formation, as if the Old Testament God wanted to set the heavens and the forces of nature in motion to unload them punishingly over me. Meanwhile, strong winds whip up the surface of the water and draw streaks and tracks into the sea, moving away from the coast. To my left, to the west of me, from the now dark mountains, the storm front approaches. Looking to my right, I see the beautiful pink light sunrise on the horizon. Just in contrast to the darkness surrounding me, the horizon shines all the more promising. Directly above me, this dark swirl of clouds. Looking even further to the right, I suddenly discover a hill shrouded in vague light, glowing green. There, in the immediate vicinity, a cloud hole has apparently formed in diffuse sunlight, somehow reflected over the cloud formations, falls in at this point. A breathtaking spectacle of different light conditions, color plays and moods in a very small space. Threat, beauty, a hopeful green, the rumble of thunder. All these impressions mix with the feeling of humidity and the wind that brushes along my body from different directions in different thrusts, mixed with the ionized smell of the sea to a baroque spectacle of the Mediterranean south. Suddenly, a bright flash, as if from nowhere, and a second later a violent thunderclap. Now it dawns on me why here, in this atmosphere, in this natural structure, Western art has always received such decisive impulses, and why important artistic and intellectual developments have been initiated. I imagine Tullio standing in the small amphitheater he built himself and set in the park, reciting Dante's Inferno in the pouring rain and with a walking stick in his hand. In the meantime, I have retreated to the kitchen to write and look out over the glass door into the garden. An almost tropical rain pours down. I feel how the parched nature in the garden breathes a sigh of relief. Water pouring from the sky, a blessing. After a good hour, everything has calmed down and it has stopped raining. Curious, I venture out of the garden door and walk through the twists and turns of the park back to the terraces with the best view of the sea and the landscape. I feel and smell the nature invigorating wet. As I walk along the park's landscaped paths, I squint over the rocks down to the sea and am enchanted by the brown and turquoise streaks of rainwater that flow from the coast into the sea. A completely different, brighter, basic color tone dips now the landscape into a mild light. I look down, fascinated on the sea. Exactly there, where my view finds itself at the surface of the water, perhaps a few hundred meters away from where I'm standing, all of a sudden an enormous lightning bolt tears the whole horizon from top to bottom and strikes the sea directly in front of me. The thunder goes through me. I still see sparks from the lightning descending to the sea, take my legs in my hands and run back to the protective cottage. This effect, this Baroque coda, has not been taken away by the Mediterranean theatre god. While I run back, startled, I hear this one still laughing derisively. I have gathered 2 or 3 years of material to write this book. With a printed manuscript in my pocket, I retreat to Sicily to pour all these fragments and ideas into a form and get to the point. Actually, I wanted to write a radical book, a merciless reckoning with the world, hard as croup steel with German sincerity and precision, unworldly, even world-despising, a modern Don Quixote fighting with a lance against the wind turbines of the large energy companies cast into the concrete foundation. A hopeless but a heroic struggle. Now I'm sitting here in this little paradise and the material is slipping away. I read my manuscript and can hardly follow the content. A few ideas as such flash in their unconventional logic, but the writing style is ponderous and laborious to read. The language with which I try to express my thoughts is probably influenced by the political science literature I read, but it is rather incoherent chunks of a jargon and not an inherently razor-sharp analytical and cold language that dissects the world as in the more successful cases of this literature. This language, which I seem to imitate somehow, throws me off like the horse throws off a rider who is not matched for it. I realize that my plan cannot work like this. The beauty and tranquility surrounding me, coupled with my open perception through morning meditation and media fasting, let the decision mature in me to throw my previous concept completely over the heap. The content pillars and my intentions remain, but instead of a congruent analytical approach as possible, I now try to grow a book narratively, intuitively, and open-ended. Without a conceptual safety net, but line by line, without a plan, I feel my way into this new territory. New territory, yes. That's what we need. Alright, this was this quite short chapter today. I'm going to look into this stream if somebody's watching and has a question to answer. Okay, so somehow I don't get into the stream for some reason. Well, we'll see each other in a week time at the same time, and I wish you a Merry Christmas.